They say male and female relationships can't be platonic because one always likes the other. But what's the reason you haven't liked a certain female friend of yours? Or have you had interest in most of your female friends? This is coming from a 19-year-old female. Story 1. I had a very close female friend in high school. I had zero physical attraction to her, so I saw us as totally platonic. But she had a crush on me. We stayed friends even though she was frustrated that I didn't want a relationship. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to me, my best friend had a crush on her. He didn't tell her until we were all in college, out of some sort of misunderstanding of bro code, I guess. They've been married 25 years now. He totally could have saved me a lot of trouble if he spoke up sooner. Laughing out loud. Story 2. They are people with whom I never envisioned being in a relationship due to differences in personalities and values. There is nothing really more than that. Them being pretty does not change that for me. Story 3. Usually in my life it's been because either they were just blatantly taken, married, super serious boyfriend. They were physically unattractive in a way I could never see past, but were fun or funny. They were way older or younger than me. They were really crazy, but they were fun to hang out with. Story 4. Some men have a type. A female friend could be average looking or have flaws, but if she's your type, your attraction will be off the scale. Suddenly, she's a 10. Story 5. I've had a female friend for nearly a decade. I met her at work when she was single. I just never felt an attraction to her. She is a beautiful woman, and we click as friends. I've never felt more than that. She is married now, and her husband is one of my best friends. Story 6. I wouldn't stay interested in anyone who wasn't interested in me. Knowing that she wasn't thinking of me in that way quickly caused me to not think of her as much anymore. It just seemed like a waste of time. The only time I can think of that a crush on a female friend persisted was in college. She had a boyfriend for almost the entire time we were in college. She broke up with him shortly before graduation because she wanted to be single, and they were about to be long distance anyway. But I knew the ex-boyfriend. She wanted to be single, and we all graduated, so nothing ever happened. Story 7. I wasn't physically attracted to them. I was very picky with who I picked as friends. Always had been. They were all phenomenal women, truly amazing. I actually loved one of them in a way, well, past friends. But I just had zero attraction to her physically. And people say looks don't matter, but they do a lot. Because there's a woman out there that I'd love, and she would be just as amazing that I would also be physically attracted to. I can't spend my life with someone I have zero interest in sexually besides she had a vagina and I have a penis and it feels good. We made out once, and it went pretty far to us almost having sex. And, like, in the moment, it was incredible. But just being around her, I never wanted to do anything with her. She deserves a man who thinks she's the sexiest woman in the world. Because she is. Just not for me. Story 8. Most of the time I am just simply not attracted to them in that way. Either something physically just did not do it for me, or the vibe just felt like a friendship. Some of them are lesbians, so it is not as if they will be attracted to me anyway. Story 9. I have a female friend whose friendship and support mean way more to me than attempting a relationship with her. We both know our personalities and hobbies would not work well together if we attempted a relationship other than being friends. I made the mistake once of getting involved sexually with someone I had been friends with for over 20 years. We both wanted sex, but neither wanted to date or meet new people at the time, so she suggested we take care of each other. No strings attached. After a few sober discussions, we agreed it was going to be just sex. Well, it worked out great for a while. We would hang out with our friends, and then have some amazing sex. Then she started to catch feelings, so we tried to go back to just being friends. But every time we got together, we ended up having sex. It was like an addiction. We both knew a normal relationship wouldn't work with us. So we decided to stop the sex and even stayed away from each other for a while. We attempted to return to being just good friends, but it hasn't been the same since. We allowed our sexual desires to mess up a great friendship, which is why I won't even think about going there with any of my other female friends. Story 10. No, I have. It's just that none of them were ever interested in me. One time, I suggested to one of my friends that maybe we should get together. People thought we were together anyway, She just laughed. Story 11. Good friends, nothing more. I like hanging out with them, but I just don't have an interest. Compatibility also matters, and I can't really see myself dating any of them. Story 12. As I've gotten older and gained more romantic experience, I can recognize that someone wouldn't be a good romantic partner despite attractiveness or similar interests. Story 13. I rarely have crushes on my female friends, but without fail, I have thought about what it would be like to hook up with all of them at least once or twice. Story 14. Well, there are two main categories there. The ones that friend-zoned me, which I did have a crush on, but it wasn't going to happen. And the ones that I friend-zoned, which had a crush on me, but I wasn't interested in them in that way, so it just wasn't going to happen. There are a handful of outliers, but that covers the majority of them. But yeah, male and female relationships like that aren't impossible. They are just far more rare than most women would like. Story 15. My best female friend is about 5 years younger than me. I met her when I started a new school. She skipped 2 grade levels and started high school at 11 instead of 13. She recognized me because I knew her older brother. Despite her having grown into an objectively attractive woman and me being in my 30s, she's about to reach her 30s. I have dated many women younger than her, so the age is not a factor. I just cannot help seeing my little friend from high school. She will always be that 11-year-old girl who followed me around. Story 16. I've had crushes on female friends but don't pursue it as I didn't want to ruin the friendship, which could happen if we broke up and has happened once before. I have very few friends, so I want to treasure the connections I have. Making real friends at 30 is a pain. Story 17. I have caught feelings more than once. Wrecked some friendships that way, sadly. A few of them got repaired, but not all. The most reliable way to not catch feelings for a female friend is to have a wife. The second best is to have a girlfriend. One of my friends in college asked if I had a girlfriend, and I said no, and I was expecting her to ask for the job. Instead, she told me she was a great wingwoman and we should go to some college events, and I look around until I see a girl I like and she'll set it up. And she did too, got me a bunch of dates. I never crushed on her because she was wingwoman zoned. Story 18. Usually, just a lack of attractiveness or obvious incompatibilities with personality. I have several totally platonic female friends I've never had feelings for, but if I find someone decently attractive and am not turned off by much, I'll often develop some feelings over time. Story 19. I usually had some interest at some point, but one in particular threw herself at me over and over. Still does. I've known her for far too long, and her doing disgusting and unwomanly things and being outrageously promiscuous tainted my image of her forever. I have absolutely zero sexual desire towards her. Story 20. A lot of the way people talk about crushes is pretty alien to me. Like, if I am single, I stay on the lookout for what seems like a decent match and see if we vibe. Investment builds after that. I've never been pining away for someone I'm not involved with. A few times that match has been a friend or a friend of a friend deal. Almost every time, actually. But then I've had all these other friendships where we get along well as friends, but I'm sure she wouldn't be interested, or one of us just didn't happen to be single. Or maybe it could have started, but I know we wouldn't be compatible in the long run. There's just no interest or crush that's going to start there because it's a non-starter before I ever get to the mental space where I would be looking at them like that, much less crushing. It's just a total non-issue. Story 21. If I am friends with someone, that means I like their personality. So if I have a female friend who I think is physically attractive, I am going to have a crush on them. That does not mean I cannot draw a boundary and understand that we are just friends. But if I am physically attracted to someone and also share a social or emotional connection with them, I will likely always be open to dating them. The female friends that I have who I do not have crushes on, I am not physically attracted to. Story 22. I like brunettes. I have never really been attracted to blondes. I had several attractive blondes I was friends with in college. I had zero interest in dating any of them. We would go dancing at the club, and they would get on the dance floor and dance around me. Other girls would get interested in me, and I would come up and run off a guy being pushy if they gave me a signal. All of us usually went home with someone every weekend. Story 23. I'm just not physically attracted to her. She's chill. We complain about our jobs to each other often, especially when we worked at the same place, but I have zero interest in her physically. Not to mention, I wouldn't want a relationship with her anyway. Too many kids and she makes poor decisions. Story 24. Not all men are pigs, and some of them have standards that they stick to. Unless she is strikingly beautiful, and then all bets are off. If I am already in a relationship, I have no problem with being friends, but if flirting and mixed signals start happening, then the friendship is over. I grew up with an adulterous father, and I swore never to behave in such a debased manner after seeing what it did to my mother and our family. Story 25:1. Most of them were already in relationships. Knowing that just puts a wall in my head where even if I find them attractive, I automatically recoil from any ideas of romance. Honestly, I've only found something like 2 or 3 of my female friends attractive. It's not that they're unattractive or anything. They just aren't my type. That's part of why I find it easy to be friends with them. Pretty women make me nervous, as immature as that sounds. It doesn't exactly feel right, as though it's like a betrayal of the friendship. That's not an actual thing, I think, mind you, but it's a vague sort of attitude I have. Maybe it just comes from how many of the women I've been friends with were in relationships while I knew them. But they're in the friend box, and that's where I intend to keep them. There are people I'm happy to be friends with, but who I'd never want to date. I had a friend in high school like that. Great girl. Was my best friend for a while. Would absolutely have never wanted to date her. Story 26. There are at least 2 kinds of crushes. This person is amazing and I want to be around them and for them to respect me. This eligible person is really attractive to me and I want them to like me or get with them. And then there's 3. We work or have fun together really well, but there's no chemistry. It's neither of those first 2. People who say it's impossible for men and women to really be friends think all 3 of those are the same, and therefore think that anyone who claims number 3 is lying. They are probably unaware of the difference in the first 2 in themselves. The Greeks had different names for those different types, by the way. Our problem is that we talk about the start of all 3 as crushes, but we only call number 2 love. Story 27. So from the other side, I've had male friends all my life. Mostly they were or are my brother's friends, but we all just hung out together and they became my friends too. Never once did I ever develop a crush on any of them. They just weren't in that part of my brain, like there was a separation between them and other boys. These guys, apart from it just would have been weird, they were gross to me in the same way my brother was. I watched them pick their nose. I went to the bathroom after them. I cleaned up their vomit after drinking too much. I epilated their legs when they fell asleep. They just weren't that kind of guy to me. Story 28. This isn't that complex. If a man doesn't have a crush on his female friend, it's generally because he's not physically attracted to her. If a man is in any way physically attracted to a female and they get along, they're friends, he probably wants to be intimate with her or has a crush on her. That's how men are built. Story 29. I did when I was a freshman. We kind of just grew apart. She was pretty much the only female I cared about. The ladies I was friends with were just that, friends. I had no intention of getting in their pants or dating them. There's no reason, I just didn't care about them like that. Story 30. I've had interest in several, but most have always just been friends, and that's what I see them as. Some I can look at and say, oh, she is attractive. But the thought of being romantic or even just intimate is like yuck. Story 31. They were just friends, and a lot of them were also terrible partners when it came to hearing the issues they had with their boyfriends. The majority of the complaints were about them being selfish or just looking for a reason to be mad or not communicating. Or they were friends' girlfriends. Story 32. I've usually been willing to connect with them if it didn't seem likely to ruin the friendship, assuming we were both single, of course. Some I wouldn't be willing to connect with because I know that we wouldn't be able to just carry on afterward. For example, if I know they are the jealous type. Some I would be willing to connect with but not date because I knew that while we made good friends, we would make a terrible couple. And some I would have been totally interested in dating, but either they weren't interested or we weren't both single at the same time. Story 33. Various reasons. I didn't find them attractive. I met them when they were in a relationship and never thought of them that way or cared to. Saw the craziness a mile away. Fun to hang out with on occasion, but no, just no. Didn't want to be yet another of her failed relationships. Knew I couldn't fix her or whatever. Saw how she treated guys who were into her. Nope. Too overbearing in all things. Fine for a distant friend or someone in the friend group. Misandry. Didn't really stay friends after figuring that one out. Same with the narcissist or user. Story 34. Sometimes people just aren't compatible in that way. I have plenty of female friends or acquaintances that I wouldn't dream of dating, for some reasons more shallow than others, including not being my type physically, personality flaws, too abrasive, too serious, not funny, not smart, makes fun of others, self-centeredness, lack of hobbies or lack of compatible hobbies, etc. Clashing styles of humor, some people are dumb funny, not actually funny, having different expectations of what relationships should be, closeness, public displays of affection, love languages, privacy, etc. Insecurities that get in the way of forming a closer relationship, none in particular. I have a hard time dating people who don't think highly of themselves. Incompatible interests outside of more basic activities. Isn't artistic. Doesn't like to read or write. Doesn't like nature. This list is pretty personal to me, but I'm sure others would agree with it to an extent. Some of these reasons are more harsh than others, obviously, and some would even prevent a friendship, let alone a romantic relationship. Of course, I could never really make a full list of why a female friend might not be attractive to me, because sometimes you just like some people and not others, and it's hard to know why.